Hello and welcome back, RP fam. Happy weekend. Hope you guys had an awesome week. In today's video, we are going over every single position, so buckle in. It is week 4 start sit. Defenses, kickers. I'm doing quarterbacks, running backs, top 36, wide receivers, top 36, tight ends, top 16. We're doing that for kickers and defenses as well. And I'm also covering top 25 quarterbacks today. As always, I want to help those in 2 QB super flex leagues, so we go deep for you there as well. Things can change pretty quickly as we get more information. Now, I have been able to see all of the reports from Friday's practices, so I should be pretty locked in these rankings, but as we get more information Saturday morning, Friday evening even, things can change. So drop your comments or your questions in the comments. I will make sure and get back to you. I answer pretty much up until kickoff. Like the video if you would be so kind. We are pushing for our first 1,000 subscribers, so make sure you have notifications on as well. That way you won't miss anything. I do 10 or more videos every week, a ton of rankings, a bunch of shorts, so keep an eye out for those as well. With all that said and done, let's get started. Defenses and kickers is where I'm going to begin. In tier number 1, I have the San Francisco 49ers against Arizona. The Cowboys are at 2, and to finish my top 3, I have the Kansas City Chiefs on the road against the New York Jets. This was one of the teams that I promoted picking up a couple of weeks ago off of waivers. They have produced. They posted back-to-back top 7 finishes, racking up 7 sacks and allowing just 19 total points in that time. Zach Wilson is going to be lucky to get to double digits here for the Jets. In tier 2, it's the Eagles, then the Browns, and at 6, it's the Baltimore Ravens in that clash with Cleveland. Tier 3 starts with the New Orleans Saints. They get Tampa Bay. The Bengals are at 8, and the Denver Broncos, surprisingly, are up at 9. I know they just got plastered last week, but Chicago doesn't scare me. It doesn't scare really any NFL squad. Very hard for the Bears to score points, so I think the Broncos bounce back, if for no other reason to defend their pride, whatever little bit they have left. Rounding out my top 10 are the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are a production monster so far this year. They got 3 sacks or more in every game they played. They've also forced 8 turnovers and scored a pair of tutties. They've been on fire. I know that this Houston Texans team has been surprising, but they could easily come back down to earth here against an above average defense. Tier 4 has the Seattle Seahawks against a pretty bad Giants squad who is likely, but not for sure, without Saquon Barkley. New England Patriots are at 12, and the Jacksonville Jaguars in London against Atlanta is my 13th ranked team. My 5th and final tier has a couple teams, the Texans, Bucks, a lot of risk, but you could do worse. And at 16, I have the LA Chargers against the Las Vegas Raiders. Chargers have actually finished in this spot or better. Over the last 2 games, they've forced 9 sacks and also 2 turnovers in that time. Vegas has not been scary offensively, obviously, and Jimmy G is still a question mark. Whether he goes or not, I think LA provides a safe-ish floor. My first tier for kickers has Jake Moody at number 1. San Francisco is a point-scoring machine. Tyler Bass at 2, and at 3 is Jake Elliott against Washington. He's going to try to hold on to that number 1 overall kicker spot. He's already had 10 field goal opportunities this season. He's a great option once again against Washington. Finishing the tier is Harrison Butker against the Jets, and in tier 2 I have Jason Myers against the Giants. Cameron Dicker is at 6, and Matt Gay is up at 7. He should get opportunities against the Rams. In tier 3, Brandon Aubrey against the New England Patriots. To round out my top 10 is Greg Joseph. I think he's a good option against a Carolina team that has given up some points to kickers this year. At 11 is Jason Sanders. He's likely going to see at least 1 shot after going 10 on 10 in extra points in week 3 in that offensive explosion. Really, any Dolphins piece is a good one at this point, and I expect a shootout in that game. Tier 4 has Brett Maher up at 12. Shout out to my sub, letting me know he has been a double-digit scorer every game this season. Lucky number 13 is Riley Patterson. Will Lutz is at 14. My fifth and final tier has Evan McPherson at the top. Could be another busy day. He hit 4 field goals last week. The Bengals offense has not caught fire yet, but it's just a matter of time. I like the low buy here on McPherson. The last kicker I have is Younghoe Koo. He gets the Jacksonville game on the road in London. Now before we hop into my quarterbacks, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Tier 1, number 1, it is Jalen Hurts against Washington. He is going to light up this vulnerable Commanders secondary. Washington plays zone at a 70% clip. Hurts is top 10 in yards per attempt, passer rating, and fantasy points per drop back. Against it, he is set up for success. He can crush them this week with the deep ball as well. He is set up to pace the field in week number 4. My second ranked quarterback is Justin Herbert. He's going to do his best to try and keep the pace. Vegas has allowed the 3rd most passing scores, the 2nd highest passer rating, and the 4th highest adjusted completion rate. Basically, Herbie is guaranteed for 300 plus, and it would not surprise me if he gets at least 3 passing scores in this one. Josh Allen headlines tier 2. He has rebounded since his stinker in week 1. Since then, Allen is 3rd in passing grade, 6th in big time throw rate, and 1st in adjusted completion rate. He scored the 5th most fantasy points per drop back as well. Joshy should shred Miami with play action as he continues to put up massive numbers. Right next to him is Tua, who will do everything he possibly can to match Allen. This game has the makings of an epic shootout. At 5, it is Patrick Mahomes. He is a high-end matchup-proof option as usual. Tier 3 starts at 6 with Kirko Chains. The Vikings play fast and they throw at a neutral rate more than any other team in the NFL. So Kirk is going to continue to feast under these circumstances. He's got an elite group of playmakers surrounding him. There is a reason right now he's the QB1 overall and shows no signs of slowing down. He is a locked and loaded option in a minivan. At number 7, I have Anthony Richardson. He probably struggles once again through the air. That is just fine for owners. Richie Rich is 1st in fantasy points per dropback. He is going to find a way on the ground. Must start. At number 8 is Lamar Jackson. He gets a tough matchup here against Cleveland, so I do not expect him to hit his ceiling here. The Browns rank 1st in pressure rate, and they've also allowed bottom 3 numbers in yards per attempt, passer rating, as well as adjusted completion rate. This means the floor is very scary. Now, Lamar could easily continue to lean on his rushing abilities and buoy his point total. But if they do not show up, then Jackson has more bust potential here than usual. Joe Burrow is up at number 9 in a good matchup with Tennessee. Depending on his calf injury, he could ball out. Tier 4 and rounding out my top 10 has Geno Smith. He ranks 9th in passing grade, 11th in yards per attempt. He's also 1st in adjusted completion rate. He is going to carve up New York for his 2nd top 10 finish in 3 weeks. Way up at 11 is Matthew Stafford. This guy is in a smash spot and is going to post impressive numbers against Indianapolis. The Colts have allowed the 8th highest yards per attempt, and they have also allowed the 4th most points per game to quarterbacks. Stafford's cannon arm has returned. His new weapons are rising to the occasion. Both LA and Indy are among the fastest paced teams, which is very surprising, in the league. So this could be a shootout brewing, and I want all the pieces I can get. Trevor Lawrence finishes off my QB1s in week number 4, and at the top of tier 5, it is Brock Purdy. He should once again be able to utilize his playmakers and post a solid performance. He's the current quarterback 15, and he ranks 2nd in the league in yards per attempt. I think Arizona allows him a very safe floor here, as Mr. Irrelevant tries for his 3rd top 13 game in 4 tries. Daniel Jones is up at 14. 1 really good game, 2 stinkers. It's going to be more of the former in this one against Seattle. Russell Wilson is at 15. He's put up top 10 numbers to start the year. He's 10th in passing grade and he's 6th in yards per attempt as well. Chicago provides reason for optimism. They have offered little resistance. They allow the 3rd highest yards per attempt, the 4th highest passer rating, and the 5th most fantasy points to passers. So yes, this game matches up nicely for Russ. He is gonna cook, throw for 300 plus easily for the 3rd straight game. Justin Fields is my Sweet 16. We know that he has that massive upside against this cellar dweller defense. The Broncos just gave up 70, but we have also seen the risk all season long. This guy has to produce here or else all hope is basically lost. I'm going to give him one more go, but I don't love it at 16. Deshaun Watson, if he is healthy, is at 17. He is questionable right now against Baltimore. That is a very tough matchup. And at 18, I have CJ Stroud, who is quickly rising up our weekly options. He put on a show over the last 2 weeks, really. He's been 12th in passing grade, 3rd in yards per attempt in that span, but now comes the test. Pittsburgh is going to bring the pressure, which is something that Stroud has struggled against. So the question is, can he use his feet to create big plays and get extra time? Is he going to avoid the turnovers? If he answers yes to both of those questions after this week, then Stroud could soon threaten quarterback 1 status. Tier 7 begins with Dak Prescott, who does not have a weekly finish better than quarterback 17 all season long. The Patriots are surrendering the 8th lowest yards per attempt and also the 9th lowest passer rating this season. There is a reason that I said Prescott was not a quarterback 1 this year. He has shown that thus far. I do believe he has super flex potential, but that is about it against New England. Rounding out my top 20 is Sam Howell, fresh off getting destroyed by the Bills. And at 21, it is Jameis Winston. He is merely a desperation play in 2 quarterback leagues. The Saints slowed it down. They tried to win with the running game while limiting turnovers. The last time that we saw Winston, that is probably what we are going to see once again this year, especially because they trot out an even better defense. 22, if he goes, is Jimmy Garoppolo against the Chargers. He is the final guy in that tier. In my 8th and final tier, it starts with Baker Mayfield, and at 24 is Kenny Pickett, who has absolutely wilted this year. He ranks 4th lowest in passer grading, 2nd lowest in adjusted completion rate. Now the Texans defense could help him to get right, but the ceiling remains remarkably low and the risk is great. Bench the kid unless you have no other options. Bryce Young rounds out my top 25 and will be the last quarterback that I look at this week. Into running backs now. I'm going to go over the top 36 options for you guys. Try to give you some highlights as far as flex considerations. We're starting first and foremost with Saquon Barkley. He is unranked this week because I personally believe he is not going to play, although the Giants are holding out hope that he could possibly go. I would say only wait on him if you also roster Matt Breida so you can sub him in as a desperation move. But again, I would not suggest it. So tier 1, number 1 is Christian McCaffrey. After playing 100% of the snaps back in week 2, which only means he is going to be fresh and ready to thrash the Cardinals. CMC is averaging nearly 24 touches and 141 total yards of offense per game. He also has a 15% target share. I think he bests those lofty numbers and scores at least once. Number 2 this week is Kenneth Walker against the Giants. He ends the top tier. Tony Pollard is at 3, and at number 4, it is Bijan Robinson. He had an 81% snap share last week. He's averaging over 105 yards of total offense and nearly 18 touches. Bell cow usage. He leads the Falcons in target share as well at almost 20%. Clearly, Atlanta is determined to get him the ball, and as expected, he is capitalizing on it. Thus far, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been elite at run stopping, but we know that Bijan is matchup proof. Travis Etienne in that same game is my 5th ranked back. At the top of my 3rd tier is James Cook. And at 7, I have Josh Jacobs on the road against the Chargers. He's going to use his volume in a good matchup here to hit for owners. He is 6th in targets, 7th in target share, and also 4th in yards per route run among running backs. That type of usage means big upside against the Chargers. The next man up is Derrick Henry at 8. He is a high-risk, high-reward option against this Bengals forgiving gap run defense. If Tennessee is able to keep this one close, the King could have a big day. But if Cincy gets hot offensively, then Henry is going to lose not only snaps but opportunities, just like he did last week. At the top of tier 4 is Kyren Williams. He's posted an incredible 95% snap rate in each of the last 2 games. He's averaging 16 total touches and 82.5 yards, and he also has an 18% target share, basically out of nowhere, as the true bell cow back in the Rams system. The lack of efficiency for him has not been good, but it will not matter if he is always on the field. We do have a little bit of bust potential, but he should be fine because of his work in the passing game, so I am buying the volume and hoping for a score. Zach Moss, believe it or not, rounds out my top 10. He's done everything for the Colts so far this season. Up at 11 is Ramondre Stevenson, even in a difficult matchup against Dallas. Because what the heck are they going to do? Let Mac Jones throw the ball? I think not. My last RB1 is DeAndre Swift. He has been the guy for Philly, playing 75% and 54% of the snaps over the last 2 weeks. And in that time, he's racked up an average of 24 touches for 160 total yards as the RB8 overall in fantasy. Who saw that coming? Commanders have given up the 5th highest explosive run rate as well, so we can expect a couple big plays from Swifty in this one. At the top of tier 5 is Raheem Mostert. He may have lost his all-out grip on the RB1 role after that ground game explosion last week. He did play 51% of the snaps, but he's going to be heavily involved in this elite offense. Rookie Devon Achane is going to have a big role moving forward, but I still like Mostert plenty, and he probably scores against Buffalo. At 14 is Joe Mixon, and at 15, welcome to the program, Alvin Kamara. He should step right into a monster day against the Bucs. He should see all the touches that he can handle in his first game of 2023. He can take advantage in that zone-heavy scheme. Tier 6 starts with Alexander Madison, and right after is Javonte Williams in a good matchup with the Bears. Miles Sanders is at 18. He continues to handle a big load, playing 60% of the snaps and averaging 18 touches and 70 yards per game. He's 5th in target share and has the most targets among backs in the league. That usage is why he is a solid option here, even against a surprisingly good Vikings front 7. Tier 7 has Isaiah Pacheco up at 19, and rounding out the top 20 is Devon Achane. He could see heavier usage than expected against this Bills gap-deficient defense. Achane definitely carved out a role for us last week, and 12 to 15 touches in this offense, if that's what he can sustain, will bring plenty of upside. Brian Robinson is at 21. He is a pure volume play against an elite Philly defense. The Eagles have the 2nd highest stuff rate. They've also surrendered the lowest yards after contact, and they're the only team in the league to have allowed 0 explosive runs. So bust potential if things go sideways early for Washington. The top of tier 8 is Rachaad White. He keeps getting the volume, so we keep needing to start him. White is averaging over 19 touches and 71 total yards so far, so I buy the floor. Dameon Pierce is at 23, and my last running back 2 in week 4 is James Conner. Another brutal matchup here with San Francisco. At 25 and 26, back-to-back, I have a pair of Steelers. I think both Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren are viable flex options. The Texans have the 8th lowest stuff rate, the 8th highest missed tackle rate, and the 11th most yards after contact per attempt allowed. They've also surrendered the 9th highest yards per reception to backs. So what does all this mean? Houston can be had by running backs, period. That's why I like both these guys this week. Tier 9 at 27 is Jerome Ford. He did get the usage that owners were hoping for, but make no mistake about it, Ford's day was saved by tutties. Played in 56% of the snaps, he had 12 touches for 51 total yards, and more importantly, he handled all the work inside the 5-yard line. Now, Baltimore is top 10 stopping explosive runs. They've also allowed the 10th lowest yards after contact per attempt, and they've surrendered the 4th lowest yards per carry to gap runs. That is what Ford prefers at nearly a 60% rate, so everything will be earned for him in week 4. It's going to be tough sledding. Elijah Mitchell, if he plays, and make sure because a knee injury popped up in Thursday's practice, he's at 28 against Arizona, and Joshua Kelly is next at 29. Breece Hall rounds out my top 30. He has seen increase in snaps in every week he's played this year. He was 50% used last week. He is always a threat to break one, but without a passing game threat, which the Jets no longer have, those opportunities have been few and far between. He has faced the 7th highest rate of defenders in the box this year, the 9th highest stacked carry rate as well. The poor, unfortunate soul. I do believe in the talent, but I would rather not bet on it with the current situation. My 10th tier has Khalil Herbert at 31. He continues to split work in this low upside backfield. Now, if the game does stay close, Herbert has a chance at surprising, but after the passing game work for him dried up last week, he is nothing more than a risky flex. At 32 is Matt Breida. Once again, I'm not loving playing him. If you have Saquon and you want to wait, I don't hate it for you, but it's not my preference. At 33 is Tyler Algier, and my 11th tier, and the final one for running backs, has Kenneth Gainwell kicking it off at 34. I think he's a decent floor play who could see increased work. If this one gets out of hand, which is likely, Gainwell's averaging 61 total yards of offense and 16.5 touches in his 2 games played. Gus Edwards is at 35. The last running back I have in week 4 is Jerick McKinnon. Pretty good matchup as far as a pass catching back against the Jets. Wide receiver rankings are up next, and to start them is Justin Jet Jefferson at number 1. Tyreek Hill is at 2. He ranks 2nd in target share and yards per route run. He's also 6th in first read share among wide receivers. The matchup here is brutal, but you don't bench the cheetah. Keenan Allen is at 3, fresh off of back-to-back wide receiver 1 overall performances. And at 4 is Devontae Adams. He has an NFL leading 39.4% target share. This dude is also 1st in first read share. Now, he could fall a little bit if Jimmy G can't go, but Adams remains a locked-in option. Rounding out my top 5 is Stephon Diggs, and Jamar Chase is up at 6 against Tennessee. He finally broke out in 2023. He had a massive 12-catch, 141-yard primetime performance against those Rams. There will be another solid outing here against this secondary. Tennessee can't slow anyone down, and that zone has no chance. I think Chase could challenge last week's numbers, and he could post his first touchdown of the season. A.J. Brown is up at 7, and I have Jalen Waddle in at 8. He is a locked top 10 play against Buffalo. He's averaging over 105 yards receiving per game and an otherworldly 5.53 yards per route run. Tier 3 begins with CeeDee Lamb. He's going to take advantage of some extra looks against man coverage this week. Against that defense, he owns a 25% target share, nearly a 60% air yard share, and an incredible 4.57 yards per route run. So he is going to have a bounce back game. Number 10 is Chris Olave, and at 11, I'm giving another chance to Puka Nacua. This guy continues to dazzle as the wide receiver 7 overall. He has a target and air yard share above 31%, and he's also 4th in first read share. Stafford is going to keep force feeding him this week. My last wide receiver 1 is Devontae Smith. He's got a 27.6% first read share. He's averaging over 2 yards per route run on the season, and he might get his turn this week after A.J. Brown was a squeaky wheel in week 3. Up at 13 is Deebo Samuel. He is officially questionable with both knee and rib issues. He is a must start though if he is active. If he is out, Brandon Ayuk is set up for a monster day. Up at 14, I have T. Higgins. I know he had a brutal week 3 performance, couldn't seem to catch the ball for the life of him, but I am not losing hope in this great matchup. Keep the faith in Higgy. At 15 is Calvin Ridley. He is the wide receiver 13 in expected fantasy points per game, but he also leads the league in drops, so he's had a lot of missed opportunities to this point. Atlanta's corners, though, offer a good get-right chance. I think Ridley takes advantage of it. DK Metcalf is my Sweet 16, and at the top of Tier 5 is Michael Pittman Jr. He does pull a tough assignment this week, but his usage has been excellent, and the production has followed. Pittman is a top 12 wideout this far, and he's probably an even bigger focus in the Colts passing attack this week. If you are a Richardson owner and can buy the stack, do that if you can. At 18 is Brandon Ayuk, plus or minus about 5 or 6 spots, depending on what happens with Debo. And at 19, it is Amari Cooper. He stands out early in the season, ranking top 20 in target share, yards per route run, and first read share. He has big play potential as well. He is 7th in air yard share. He showcased that with a 43-yard tutty against the Titans last week. Rounding out my top 20 is George Pickens. He has commanded elite volume since DeAndre Johnson went down with injury. 26% target share, 39% air yard share, 35% first read share over the last 2 games, and he's done all that while racking up 3.61 yards per route run. Sign me up. Pickens has wide receiver 1 upside this week, should easily eclipse 100 yards. Tyler Lockett is at 21 in a good matchup, and Chris Godwin is at 22. He gets New Orleans. He is the buck to start in the passing game this week. He's got a 25.4% first read share, and he is leading the team in red zone targets as well. Very surprising. When we add in the fact that Marshawn Lattimore is going to be shadowing Mike Evans, as always, Godwin could easily feast here. At 23, I have Nico Collins against Pittsburgh. Might be losing the grip on the wide receiver 1 role, and Christian Kirk is my last wide receiver 2 in week number 4. Adam Thielen surprisingly lands in the top 25. He headlines Tier 7, and he's actually set up in this game for another big day. He's the current wide receiver 13. This guy's got a 19.4% target share, 23% air yard share, and he's compiling 1.7 yards per route run. Not bad for the old timer. Is also 28% first read share out of the slot, means that Hooked on a Thielen is going to shred this very weak secondary. Death by 1,000 cuts is perfectly fine in half-point PPR. That is what Thielen is this week. Start him with confidence. Jacoby Myers is up at 26, and I have Tutu Atwell at 27 against Indy. He scored last week on that toe tap. I don't care what you say. 28 is Tank Dell. I think this guy is taking over that wide receiver 1 spot in Houston. In the last 2 games, he is first on the team in target share, air yard share, and first read share. CJ Stroud obviously loves him, and if he keeps feeding him, Dell could have league-altering upside. Tier 8 begins with Zay Flowers. This guy keeps seeing excellent usage. He's got the league's 9th highest target share, and he's 10th highest in first read share. Lamar wants to find him and feed him the rock. The problem is the average depth of target is the 4th lowest among 91 qualifying receivers, basically because all they're doing is throwing him screens, and that has not led to the points piling up. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are up next back-to-back. I think each of these guys are solid flex options in this awesome matchup. Sutton does lead the team with a 25% target share and a 30% air yard share, so he is who I lean, but really either one could go off. Jordan Addison continues to make it hard to keep him on benches, and honestly, I have not been a proponent of that over the last couple weeks. He's at 32 here, and I think he's got another decent shot against the Panthers. Tier 9 starts with Mike Evans. Really, he is so much risk against Marshawn Lattimore. He's better off left on benches, but after how he has performed in the last couple weeks, I really couldn't blame you if you flexed him. DeAndre Hopkins is at 34. He continues to struggle with efficiency, mostly due to the quarterback play that he has had to endure, but his volume has been another story. Nuke has a 29% target share, 37.5% air yard share, and he is a solid play as long as you're just looking for a floor against this Bengals stingy secondary. Gabe Davis is at 35, and my last wide receiver I'm looking at is DJ Moore against Denver. He currently accounts for almost a third of the Bears' receiving yardage and owns a very strong 27.5 first read share. Now, I know the offense around him is abysmal, but Moore has shown the talent to overcome it. Roll the dice here if you are feeling lucky. My favorite dart throw who just missed the cut is Quentin Johnston. It would not surprise me if he had a big blow-up game in this awesome matchup now that Mike Williams is gone for injury. I highlighted him in my waiver wire targets, but it is Johnston and not Palmer as the wide receiver you want in LA. Finishing up with my tight ends before we call it a weekend. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, very appreciated. At my 1-1, it is Travis Kelce, but right behind him at 2 is TJ Hawkinson. He will not slow down against this Panthers defense. They are allowing big time numbers to the position. Hawk has 8 targets or more in every game this year. He is going to threaten Kelce for that number 1 spot. Tier 2 starts with George Kittle. He's going to see increased usage with those multiple injuries in the wide receiver room for San Francisco. The other thing is the Cardinals are a smash matchup. They've allowed the 4th most receiving yards and the 6th highest yards per reception to the position. I think Kittle produces an epic encore for managers after racking up 90 yards last week. Darren Waller is at 4 and Mark Andrews rounds out my top 5. I have Evan Ingram at 6, and at 7 is Dallas Goedert. He always has upside in this offense, but Washington has been tough to the position thus far. They've surrendered bottom 3 numbers in receiving yardage as well as yards per reception. Now, all that being said, Goddard is still a must-start option who could boom. At 8, it is Pat Freiermuth against Houston, and to start tier 4 is Kyle Pitts. He has top 5 upside this week against the Jags. He is first in route run per team drop back rate, and that's at 85%. He's 8th in target share at over 19%, and he is 6th in routes. The usage has been there for him. We think eventually the production will follow. For the first time this year, my bet is it does. Final guy in my top 10 is Tyler Higbee. He's a decent option in a plus matchup. He is questionable, so check on him. The Colts have given up top 12 numbers in yards per reception and yardage to the position. Logan Thomas is at the top of tier 5. He returns from injury to this great matchup with the Eagles. Philadelphia has given up the 3rd most receiving yards, the 4th most receptions, and the most touchdowns to tight ends this season. Thomas had a 20+% target share, air yard share, and first read yard share back in week 1 when he first played. He is going to be involved. Hunter Henry is my last tight end 1 in this week, and Dalton Kincaid is up at 13. Zach Ertz is at 14 against San Francisco, and my final tier begins with Jake Ferguson. He is a fringe starter option. He's got an 18% target share this year for the boys. He leads the league in red zone targets at the position as well. At 16, the last player I am looking at in start sit for week number 4 is Gerald Everett. Great matchup with the Raiders. And that is everything I got for you guys. Hope you got some valuable information. Make sure you ask questions. I love the engagement. To all my current subscribers out there, I greatly appreciate you guys. If you aren't part of us yet, go ahead and click that button. We are well on our way to our first 1,000. Clicking it now can make you a part of the journey with us. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Avery of Opats, and I will see